I'm Holly, 30, female. I live in a beautiful two-story house in a quiet suburban neighborhood with my husband, David, and his 2 children. As a landscape architect, I see the world in terms of potential, how to nurture growth, create harmony, and build something beautiful out of disparate elements. I truly believed I could apply that same principle to my new family, but I soon learned that some roots are so poisoned, the only solution is to stop watering them altogether. This is the story of how my stepchildren's cruel declaration that I wasn't their real parent forced me to stop playing a role I was never meant to fill and start living a life that was truly my own. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. When I met David, he was the complete package, a successful surgeon, intelligent, kind, and devastatingly handsome. He was also a father of 2. His son, Josh, was 12 at the time, and his daughter, Mia, was 10. He painted a picture of an amicable divorce from his ex-wife, Karen, describing it as a mutual decision made for the good of the children. He told me the kids were resilient, and that all they needed was stability and love. I, being a romantic who believed in second chances, fell for it completely. Our courtship was a whirlwind of carefully curated dates, blending romantic dinners with family, friendly outings to the zoo and local parks. The kids seemed fine. They were polite enough, though distant. Josh was quiet and perpetually attached to his phone, while Mia would offer shy, one-word answers to my questions. I chalked it up to them being typical preteens adjusting to a new person in their father's life. David would always reassure me, saying, "They just need time to warm up. They really like you, I can tell." After a year, we got married. I moved into the large house he had once shared with Karen. My first mistake, perhaps, as it felt like I was an intruder in a space already filled with memories. Still, I was determined to make it our home. I spent weeks redesigning the backyard, pouring my professional skills into creating a stunning garden with a patio for family barbecues and a cozy fire pit for evening chats. I repainted the living room, hung new art, and tried to fill the sterile, beige spaces with warmth and color. I wanted to build a sanctuary, a place where we could all grow together. My efforts to connect with the children were relentless. I learned to cook Josh's favorite meal, lasagna, even though I hated the taste of ricotta cheese. I sat through hours of Mia's favorite fantasy TV shows, trying to keep track of the convoluted plot lines and endless character names. I offered to help them with their homework, drive them to their friends' houses, and buy them the latest sneakers or gadgets they wanted. I did everything I thought a caring, supportive parent figure should do. On the surface, it almost worked. To our friends and neighbors, we looked like the perfect blended family. David would post photos on social media of us smiling at a pumpkin patch or on a ski trip, with captions full of hashtags like #FamilyFirst and #blessed. But behind the screen, the reality was very different. The smiles were fleeting, the connection was thin, and the children's politeness was a fragile veneer over a deep, seated resentment I couldn't seem to penetrate. They never called me Holly. It was always a pointed, silent stare until I responded. They never said thank you for the meals I cooked or the rides I gave. The clothes I bought for them would remain in their closets with the tags still on. Any attempt at a deeper conversation was met with a shrug or a mumbled "I don't know." It was like trying to plant flowers in concrete. David, for his part, was often oblivious. His work as a surgeon was incredibly demanding, with long hours and high-stress situations. When he was home, he was often exhausted and just wanted peace. He saw what he wanted to see, a beautiful wife who was trying her best and kids who weren't actively causing trouble. "They're just teenagers," he'd say with a tired smile whenever I tried to voice my concerns. "It's a tough age, don't take it personally," but it felt deeply personal. It felt like I was a live-in maid, a chauffeur, and a bank account, but never a person. The emotional labor was exhausting. I was constantly walking on eggshells, trying to earn an affection that seemed impossible to achieve. I kept telling myself to be patient, that one day there would be a breakthrough. One day they would see me not as their father's wife, but as someone who genuinely cared for them. That day never came. Instead, what came was a single, brutal sentence that shattered the facade for good. The breaking point arrived on what should have been a happy occasion, my 30th birthday. It was a milestone, and David wanted to celebrate it properly. He planned a small gathering at our house with a dozen of our closest friends. He had ordered a beautiful cake, arranged for catering, and even bought me a stunning pair of diamond earrings that I felt entirely too guilty to accept. I just wanted a quiet dinner, but he insisted. He said he wanted to show me off to celebrate our life together. For weeks leading up to the party, I was a bundle of nervous energy. I meticulously planned the decor, curated a playlist of my favorite music, and bought a new dress. I even went out of my way to invite a couple of Josh and Mia's friends, hoping that including them might make the kids feel more a part of the celebration. I wanted it to be a perfect evening, a testament to the happy family I was so desperate to believe we were. The day of the party, I was running around, making sure everything was in place. Josh and Mia were, as usual, holed up in their rooms. Around noon, I knocked on Josh's door. "Hey, Josh," I said cheerfully. "Could you give me a hand with the recycling? The bins are overflowing." He opened the door a crack, his eyes glued to his phone. "I'm busy. It'll only take 5 minutes." I pleaded. "I can't lift the big bin on my own." He sighed, a dramatic, world-weary sound. "Fine." He trudged downstairs and helped me drag the bins to the curb without another word. When we got back inside, Mia was standing in the hallway, arms crossed. "Dad said we have to come to your party tonight," she said, her tone accusatory. "Well, it is a family celebration," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "I'd love for you to be there. Your friends are coming, remember?" Josh scoffed. "We're not coming." I felt a familiar knot of frustration tighten in my stomach. "What do you mean you're not coming? Your father expects you to be here. Our friends expect to see you. We don't want to," Mia added, her voice a quiet echo of her brother's defiance. "We want to go to Mom's house." I took a deep breath. This was a common tactic. Whenever there was a family event at our house they didn't want to participate in, they would use their mother as an excuse. Karen, of course, would always welcome them with open arms, positioning herself as the fun, understanding parent. "Your mom knows it's my birthday party," I said, trying to reason with them. "We've had this planned for weeks. It would be really rude to just leave." This is when Josh's expression hardened. He finally looked up from his phone, his eyes cold and sharp. "We don't care if it's rude. We only have to listen to our real parents, Dad and Mom. You're not our mom." The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy as shards of glass. It wasn't the first time they had implied it, but it was the first time it had been said so directly, so cruelly. Mia nodded in agreement, her gaze unwavering. "You're just Dad's wife." Josh continued, emboldened by my stunned silence. "You don't get to tell us what to do. So we're calling Mom, and she's going to come get us. Dad can deal with it." My throat felt tight. I couldn't find the words to respond. All the effort, all the lasagna, all the patience, all the love I had poured into them. It all felt like a colossal waste. I was nothing more than an obstacle, an inconvenience in their lives. At that moment, David walked in, whistling, holding a bag of ice. He saw the tension on our faces and his smile faded. "What's going on here?" "Josh and Mia are refusing to come to the party," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "They want to go to their mother's house." David looked at his children, his expression weary. "Guys, come on. It's Holly's 30th birthday. We talked about this. You need to be here." "No, we don't," Josh shot back. "We told Holly. We only answer to you and Mom. She's not our parent. We're going to Mom's." I watched David's face, praying he would finally put his foot down, that he would defend me, that he would make his children understand the hurt they were causing. Instead, he just sighed. He ran a hand through his hair and looked from them to me, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Just for an hour," he pleaded with them. "Come down, say hello to everyone, have a piece of cake, and then I'll drive you to your mom's. Can you do that as a favor to me?" And that was it, the ultimate betrayal. He didn't correct them. He didn't validate my role in our family. He negotiated with them, treating their profound disrespect as a simple scheduling conflict. He asked them to do it as a favor. To him, implicitly agreeing that their obligation was only to him. In that moment, he confirmed what they had just said. I was not their parent. I was just his wife, the party, my birthday, my feelings. They were all secondary to keeping the peace. I looked at the smug, triumphant expressions on their faces and felt something inside me break. The party went on that night, but I was just a ghost at my own celebration. I smiled, I opened presents, I thanked everyone for coming, but my mind was replaying that scene in the hallway over and over. "You're not our real mom," and my husband's silent agreement. That was the night the perfect family facade didn't just crack, it shattered into a million pieces. The days following my birthday party were shrouded in a thick, suffocating fog of disillusionment. I went through the motions of my life, making breakfast, going to work, tending to my garden, but the joy was gone. The conversation with Josh and Mia, and more importantly, David's feeble reaction, had fundamentally changed something within me. The hopeful, optimistic part of me that had been trying so hard to build a family had curled up and died. David seemed to sense the shift. He tried to be more attentive, bringing me flowers and suggesting date nights. He apologized for how the kids had behaved, offering the same tired excuses. They're just lashing out because they're teenagers. They're still adjusting. Karen probably put them up to it. He blamed everyone and everything except the core issue, that he refused to establish my role in the household as anything more than a glorified accessory to his life. Our conversations were circular and frustrating, always ending with him asking me to be patient and me feeling completely unheard. I started to withdraw. I stopped cooking elaborate meals for the kids. I stopped asking them about their day. I stopped offering them rides. If they needed something, I would direct them to their father. The house grew quiet and cold, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Josh and Mia seemed to enjoy my retreat, taking it as a victory. They would walk past me without a glance, headphones on, living in their own separate world within our shared walls. The discovery that revealed the true depth of the deception happened by accident. About a month after the party, David had bought a new family iPad, setting it up in the living room for everyone to use. One evening, he was trying to help me with a school project and had logged into her social media account to find some pictures she needed. He must have forgotten to log out. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I was sitting on the couch, unable to sleep. I picked up the iPad to browse the internet, and a notification popped up on the screen. It was from a group chat. The name of the chat was The Real Team. Curiosity got the better of me. I tapped on it. The members were David, Karen, Josh, and Mia. My name was nowhere to be seen. It was a private chat for their real family. My heart began to pound in my chest as I started scrolling through the messages, going back months. What I found was a treasure trove of betrayal. It was a space where they coordinated their lives, made plans, and most painfully, talked about me. There were messages from Karen to the kids, subtly poisoning them against me. Karen, remember, if Holly tries to make you do chores, you just have to tell your dad. She's not your mother, she has no authority. Karen, is Holly trying to cook that weird healthy food again? Don't worry, I'll bring you guys pizza tomorrow. There were messages from Josh and Mia, complaining about me in the most juvenile, hurtful ways. Josh, Dad's wife is trying to make us go to her boring birthday party. Can you please get us out of it, Mom? Mia, Holly bought me a new jacket and it's so ugly. I'm going to hide it in my closet. Josh, had to help Holly with the trash today. Literally the worst part of my day. Why can't she do it herself? But the most devastating messages were from my own husband, David. He wasn't malicious, but his weakness was a betrayal in itself. He was constantly placating, constantly apologizing for my existence. Karen, David, the kids said Holly was trying to ground them for not doing homework. David, I'll talk to her. She's just trying to help, but she can be a bit much. I'll handle it. And then I found the messages from the day of my birthday party. Josh, Mom, we told Holly she isn't our real mom and we're coming to your house. Karen, good for you for standing up for yourselves. Your dad and I are your parents, no one else. I'll be there in an hour. David to Karen, hey, the kids are a bit upset. I told them they could come over after they make an appearance at the party. Sorry for the drama. Holly is just a little sensitive about these things. A little sensitive. I felt the air leave my lungs. All this time, I had thought I was fighting a battle against teenage angst. I was wrong. I was fighting a coordinated campaign being orchestrated by Karen, enabled by David, and executed by their children. They were a team, the real team, and I was the outsider, the opposition. I read through months of their family life that had been happening right under my nose. They planned movie nights for the weekends I was visiting my parents. They discussed summer vacation ideas without any mention of me. David had even been sending Karen money on the side for the kids' extra expenses, things he told me we couldn't afford. The feeling of being a fool was overwhelming. I had been pouring my heart, energy, and money into a family that had a secret club dedicated to excluding and undermining me. My attempts to build a home were seen as an invasion. My kindness was interpreted as a weakness to be exploited. And my husband, the man who was supposed to be my partner, was a double agent, placating me to my face while managing my sensitivity behind my back. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the iPad screen illuminating the tears streaming down my face. The sadness was immense, but underneath it, something else was beginning to spark. It was a cold, hard anger, the kind of anger that burns away confusion and leaves behind a crystal, clear sense of purpose. They had drawn the lines, they had defined the roles. Josh was right. I wasn't their real mom. David was right. I was just his wife, and Karen was right. I had no authority. Fine. If that's how they wanted it, then that's exactly what they were going to get. The days of me trying to be a loving, caring, maternal figure were officially over. Operation Malicious Compliance was about to begin. Armed with the devastating knowledge from the real team group chat, I spent the next few weeks in a state of quiet, meticulous observation. The anger that had ignited in me that night didn't burn out. It settled into a low, steady flame of resolve. I needed to understand the full scope of the situation before I made my move. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was a strategist gathering intelligence on the opposition. My first target was the finances. David and I had a joint account for household expenses, but we maintained separate personal accounts. He had always been the primary earner, and I never questioned his financial decisions. He handled the mortgage, the utilities, and the larger bills, while my income from my landscape architecture business went towards groceries, clothes for the kids, home decor, and our fund for vacations and outings. Now, seeing his secret payments to Karen in the chat, I started digging. It wasn't hard. He was careless, leaving bank statements on his desk, confident I had no reason to look. What I found was a consistent pattern. Every month, a significant amount of money was transferred to Karen, labeled kids' expenses. It was far more than what child support would have been. When I referenced the dates with our own spending, a sickening picture emerged. The ski trip we took last winter, I had paid for the kids' ski rentals and lessons from our joint account, believing we were sharing the cost. The statements showed David had sent Karen money for the exact same things a week prior. She was dipping, and he was letting her. The expensive summer camps he told me were a splurge for the kids. He and Karen had split the cost privately. My contribution from the fund was just extra. I was subsidizing their co-parenting arrangement without my knowledge, my money, my effort. It was all just a bonus for them, allowing them to maintain their real team, while I played the role of the generous, clueless benefactor. The scale of the financial deception was staggering. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the deliberate, calculated disrespect. They had made me a financial mule for their family unit. Next, I turned my attention to Karen's emotional manipulation. As a school counselor, she knew exactly which buttons to push. I started paying closer attention to the timing of the kids' behavioral shifts. I realized that after every weekend they spent with her, they would return to our house with a new list of grievances. Suddenly, the brand of cereal I bought was wrong. The rules about screen time were unfair. My requests for them to clean their rooms were controlling. I began documenting it all in a private journal. I noted the dates, the specific complaints, and the language they use. Language that sounded far more like a savvy adult than a teenager. Phrases like setting healthy boundaries, used to justify ignoring me and honoring their feelings. Used to excuse their rudeness were clear indicators of Karen's coaching. She was weaponizing her professional vocabulary to empower her children's disrespect, framing it as a form of self-advocacy. The most damning piece of evidence came when I overheard Mia on the phone with her mom. I wasn't snooping. I was simply walking past her room, and she had her door ajar, but Holly didn't even say anything. Mia whined, "I know, Mom, I know. I'm supposed to just say I'm not comfortable with her tone. Okay, yes, I'll tell Dad she was being passive-aggressive. Okay, love you too." It was a script. Karen was feeding them lines, teaching them how to frame me as the aggressor in any situation, ensuring David would always have to step in and manage me. She had created a perfect feedback loop of conflict that always positioned her as the savior and me as the problem. And David, my investigation into him was the most painful. He wasn't an evil mastermind. He was a avoidant coward. He was so terrified of drama, so desperate to keep his children happy and his ex-wife placated, that he had sacrificed his new wife's happiness and dignity to achieve a fragile, artificial peace. His betrayal wasn't active malice, it was passive neglect. He outsourced his parenting to Karen and outsourced the emotional labor of running his home to me. He existed in the comfortable middle, letting the two women in his life manage everything while he focused on his prestigious career. He wanted the picture, perfect family without doing any of an actual parent's hard work. By the end of my investigation, I had a clear and undeniable picture of the dynamics at play. I had financial records, a detailed log of manipulative behaviors, and a profound understanding of each person's role in this dysfunctional drama. The grief I felt for the family I thought I was building was replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I could not change them. I could not win their love or respect through kindness. The only thing I could do was change the rules of the game. They had made it clear I was not a parent. I was just a woman who lived in their house. And it was time I started acting like one. My transformation wasn't announced with a dramatic speech or a tearful confrontation. It began quietly, subtly, like a frost slowly creeping over a garden. My plan was simple. I would take my stepchildren's words, "You're not our real mom," and adhere to them with absolute, unwavering precision. I would comply with their reality so completely that they would be forced to live with the full consequences of it. I called it Operation Malicious Compliance. Phase 1 was a complete withdrawal of all maternal and household services. I stopped doing their laundry. I stopped cleaning their rooms. I stopped making them special meals. I started cooking for two, one portion for me, one for David. When Josh came into the kitchen one evening and saw me plating a beautiful pan, seared salmon with asparagus, he asked, "What's for dinner?" I made salmon. I replied cheerfully, sitting down at the table. "Where's ours?" I looked at him with an expression of mild confusion. "Oh, I'm not sure what your dad or your mom has planned for you. You should probably ask one of them." The look on his face, a mixture of shock and indignation, was priceless. He stood there for a full minute, expecting me to crack, before storming off to his room to text his father. My new mantra became, "You should ask your dad." "Holly, can you drive me to soccer practice?" Mia asked one afternoon. "Sorry, I can't. You should ask your dad for a ride." "Holly, I need money for the school trip." "You should talk to your dad about that." "Holly, I can't find my favorite hoodie." "That's a shame. Have you asked your dad if he's seen it?" Initially, they thought it was a temporary tantrum. But as days turned into weeks, the reality of their new situation began to sink in. Their laundry baskets overflowed. Their rooms became chaotic messes. They were living off frozen pizzas and cereal because I no longer catered to their tastes. The home I had worked so hard to maintain became two distinct zones: the clean, calm, adult spaces where David and I lived, and the disaster areas that were their bedrooms. Phase 2 was the financial disentanglement. I opened a new, separate bank account. I sat down and calculated exactly how much of my income had been spent on Josh and Mia over the past 2 years. Clothes, school supplies, extracurricular activities, gifts, food. The number was staggering. I then rerouted my paycheck to my new account and set up an automatic transfer to the joint account. The amount I transferred was precisely half of the core household bills: mortgage, utilities, insurance. Not a penny more. My personal income was now mine alone. The first casualty of this new budget was the weekly grocery bill, which was cut by more than half. I bought what David and I needed and enjoyed. No more expensive brand, name snacks for the kids, no more organic juices, no more endless supplies of their favorite ice cream. The pantry, once a treasure trove of teenage delights, became a barren landscape of lentils, quinoa, and other things they wouldn't touch. David, caught in the crossfire, was utterly bewildered. "Holly, the kids are starving," he said one night after Josh complained for the 10th time that there was no food in the house. "There's plenty of food," I replied calmly. "They just don't want to cook it. But you always make sure they have things they like. Their parents are responsible for feeding them," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "That would be you and Karen. My financial contributions are for the household we share as a married couple. Raising your children is your financial responsibility." Phase 3 was the reclamation of my time and energy. With all the hours I was no longer spending on childcare and domestic labor, I rediscovered my own life. I took on a challenging new project at work, a large public park redesign that I had previously thought I was too busy to handle. I started going to the gym after work. I reconnected with old friends for dinner and drinks. I spent weekends working on my own section of the garden, planting exotic flowers that were just for me. The house, which once felt like a prison of thankless servitude, became just a place where I slept. I was polite and civil to Josh and Mia, like one would be to a roommate's distant relatives. I would offer a small, detached smile in the hallway and then continue on my way. I was no longer emotionally invested in their moods, their problems, or their lives. I had been freed from the burden of caring for people who didn't want my care. The kids and David were spiraling. The household chores fell entirely on David's shoulders, and with his demanding job, he couldn't keep up. The house was a mess. The kids were constantly complaining. He was getting frantic texts from Karen, asking why the children were suddenly so neglected. He was being forced to truly parent, for the first time in years, and he was failing miserably. He tried to reason with me, to bargain with me, to guilt me. This isn't a team, Holly. We're supposed to be a family. You're right. I agreed. A family is a team, but as your kids so kindly pointed out, I'm not on their team. I'm just your wife, and I am being a perfectly good wife to you. I'm just no longer being a mother to your children. That's your job. The perfect family facade had crumbled, revealing the rotten foundation beneath. They had wanted me out of the parent role, and I had happily obliged, but they had never considered who would pick up the slack. They were about to find out that the work of a mother, even a fake one, was the glue that had been holding their comfortable lives together, and that glue was now gone. The breaking point for David came about 3 months into Operation Malicious Compliance. For months, he had been planning a big family vacation to Hawaii for his spring break. It was something he talked about constantly, a grand gesture that he believed would magically fix the growing chasm in our family. He envisioned us all on a beach, smiling for photos, the tension melting away under the tropical sun. He booked the flights and a beautiful 2-bedroom suite at a luxury resort without consulting me on the details, assuming I would be thrilled. A week before we were scheduled to leave, he came home with a stack of travel brochures. "Okay, team," he announced with forced cheerfulness, "we need to plan our itinerary, snorkeling with sea turtles, a volcano tour, a traditional luau." Josh and Mia barely looked up from their devices. I continued reading my book. "Holly, what do you think?" he asked, his voice strained. I finally looked up. "Oh, that all sounds lovely, David. I hope you and the kids have a wonderful time." He stared at me, confused. "What do you mean, you and the kids? We're all going." "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," I said calmly, placing a bookmark in my novel. "I won't be joining you in Hawaii." "What? Why not? I've already booked everything. The flights, the hotel. It's non-refundable." "I never agreed to go, David. I stated simply, you announced we were going. That's not the same as us planning a trip together. Besides, I added, delivering the killing blow, I have my own vacation planned." The silence in the room was absolute. Even the kids were now looking at me, their mouths slightly agape. "Your own vacation," David repeated, his voice dangerously low. "Where?" "I'm going to Italy for 10 days, I said, a genuine smile gracing my lips for the first time in what felt like months. A friend from college and I are doing a tour of Tuscany. We're visiting vineyards, taking cooking classes, exploring Florence. I booked it 2 months ago. I leave the day after you get back from Hawaii." The color drained from David's face. He looked as if I had physically struck him. "You planned a trip to Italy and you didn't tell me. You planned things with your family all the time without telling me," I retorted, my voice even but sharp. "I saw the real team chat, David. I know you, Karen, and the kids were planning a summer trip to the Grand Canyon. Was I going to be invited to that, or were you going to tell me you had a medical conference to attend?" His jaw dropped. He had no idea I knew. He stammered, trying to form a defense, but there was none. The kids were very clear. I continued, standing up to face him. "They answer to their biological parents. Karen is their mother, and you are their father. This is your family vacation. I am not part of that unit. I am your wife, and as your wife, I am telling you that I have made my own plans with my own money and my own time. You wanted me to stop acting like their mother. Congratulations, you got your wish." This was the moment the dam broke. All the pent-up frustration and exhaustion in David exploded. "This is insane, Holly," he yelled. "This whole thing, the cooking, the laundry, the money. You're tearing this family apart." "No, David," I said, my voice rising to meet his. "This family was already broken when I got here. I was just the unpaid, unappreciated laborer trying to patch it up. I was the maid, the cook, the chauffeur, and the ATM, but I was never, ever treated like a partner or a parent. Your children disrespect me daily. Your ex-wife actively sabotages my relationship with them, and you enable all of it because you are too much of a coward to stand up to any of them." The words poured out of me, a torrent of truth that had been held back for too long. I sacrificed my time, my money, and my emotional well-being for children who hate me and a husband who just wanted a warm body to fill the empty space in his house. For 3 years, I tried to earn my place in this family, but your children, your ex-wife, and you already had your team, so fine. Go to Hawaii. Take your team on their vacation. I'm going to Italy to remember who I was before I tried to shrink myself to fit into this miserable little box you call a family." Josh and Mia looked horrified. They had never seen me like this. They had only ever known the quiet, accommodating Holly who absorbed their insults and catered to their whims. Seeing me fight back, seeing me expose the ugly truth of their family dynamic, terrified them. David just stood there, speechless and pale. Every excuse, every platitude he had ever used to placate me was now useless. He was faced with the consequences of his own weakness. He had allowed his ex-wife and his children to disrespect and devalue me for years, and now the person he relied on to make his life easy was walking away, not from him, but from the role he had forced upon her. The confrontation was over. There was nothing left to say. I turned around, walked upstairs to my bedroom, a space I had recently redecorated just for myself, and closed the door, leaving him to stand in the wreckage of the perfect family he thought he had. David and the kids did not go to Hawaii. The fight had shattered any illusion of a happy family getaway. The non-refundable tickets and hotel suite went to waste, a fittingly expensive symbol of the cost of his neglect. The week they were supposed to be sipping drinks on a beach was instead spent in a tense, miserable house. I, on the other hand, went to Italy. Those 10 days in Tuscany were more than a vacation, they were a resurrection. I ate pasta, drank incredible wine, laughed with my friend, and walked through ancient streets. I sketched designs for gardens in a notebook, feeling my creative spirit, which had been dormant for so long, reawaken. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about David or the kids. I focused on myself, and with every passing day, I felt the weight of the last 3 years lifting from my shoulders. I remembered what it felt like to be Holly, the talented landscape architect, the funny friend, the adventurous traveler, not just Dad's wife. When I returned, the atmosphere in the house had changed dramatically. It was quiet, but it wasn't the cold, tense silence of before. It was a somber, reflective quiet. David looked like he had aged 5 years. He told me he had done a lot of thinking while I was away. For the first time, he admitted everything. He confessed to his cowardice, his financial deception with Karen, and his failure to be a true partner to me. He apologized, not with excuses, but with a raw, broken sincerity I had never seen from him before. He had also finally had a long, overdue confrontation with Karen. He had shown her the group chat logs and told her that her days of manipulating his children and undermining his wife were over. He established firm boundaries regarding communication and finances, cutting off her secret allowance and making it clear that all parenting decisions would be made by him in his own home. He also sat Josh and Mia down and laid out the truth of the situation, that their behavior had been unacceptable, that I had been a kind and loving presence in their lives, and that they had driven me away with their cruelty. The aftermath was not a fairy tale ending where everyone suddenly changed and we all lived happily ever after. It was slow, awkward, and painful work, like clearing a garden that had been choked by weeds for years. David started therapy, both individually and with me. In our sessions, I laid out my non-negotiable terms. I would remain his wife, but I would never again be the default parent to his children. My finances would remain separate, and my time would remain my own. If we were to be a real partnership, it had to be one of equals. The kids were forced to face the real-world consequences of their actions. With my mom, services permanently offline and Karen no longer able to swoop in and coddle them, they had to learn to be responsible for themselves. David, now an engaged and active parent, made them do their own laundry, cook their own meals several nights a week, and earn their own spending money through chores. There were tears and tantrums, but David, to his credit, held firm. Their relationship with me is still distant, but the open hostility is gone. It's been replaced by a grudging, wary respect. They call me Holly now. They sometimes ask me questions about my work, and Mia even complimented the new hydrangeas I planted in the front yard. It's not the warm, loving family I once dreamed of, but it's something much more real, a group of people living together under a set of clear, respectful boundaries. My life is my own now. My business is thriving. My friendships are strong. My home is a place of peace because I refuse to let it be anything else. David is working hard to be the partner I deserve, and some days I believe we might just make it. But I know with a certainty that settles deep in my bones that I will be okay whether we do or not. I stopped trying to force a garden to grow on poisoned soil. Instead, I built a greenhouse for myself, a place where I could cultivate my own happiness on my own terms. And in this space, finally, I am flourishing.